Hi, I'm Fred Joyle. I'm an entrepreneur. I started 1-800-Dentist and ran it for many years. I'm actually involved in another business. I'm also the author of Superbold, my latest book on how to cultivate the superpower of boldness. Today, we're going to talk about how generosity can build your boldness muscle. We're also going to talk about how mining your regrets in life can help you motivate yourself to take bold action in life. And we're also going to talk about how I went from a skinny four-eyed wrestler in high school to somebody who beat Sir Richard Branson in chess, and he called me the C word as a byproduct of that, and much more. So stay tuned.
Congratulations! You are tuned into Dov Baron's Leadership and Loyalty Show, the #1 podcast for Fortune 500 executives and those who are dedicated to creating a quantum leap in leadership. Your host, Dov Baron. He's an executive mentor to leaders like you, a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, CEO World, and he's been featured on CNN, Fox, CBS, and many other notable sites. Dov Baron is an international business speaker who was named by Inc. magazine as one of the top 100 leadership speakers to hire. Now, over to Dov Baron.
Welcome, dear friends, fans, and fellow aficionados of leadership excellence. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Leadership and Loyalty. I'm your host, Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into the one thing in your business that changes everything by transforming meaning into action. Curious to know more? Simply go to dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com. So let me ask you, what does the Fear of Rejection, 1-800-Dentist, and Improv Comedy have to do with learning how to be bold in any situation? That's where we're going over the next 2 episodes. As always, we need your help in staying relevant. So please do us a favor. Go on over to wherever you tune into the podcast and do us a favor. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And you know what? If you write a review, maybe we'll give you a shout out live on air. And, it's one of the good things to understand is that we live in an abundant universe. Don't hoard the information. There's something in this episode or any of the episodes that really touches your heart, your soul, really helps you in some way. Make sure you share that out with other people. Make sure you share the show with other people so that they can get that value too. If you are a regular listener, big thank you to you for making us the #1 podcast globally for Fortune 500 listeners. And we are honored and grateful to be cited by Inc.com as the #1 podcast to make you a better leader. All right, let's dive right in. What does it take to be bold? Do you have to be born bold? Or can even the least confident among us learn how to be super bold? Well, let's find out, because our guest for the next 2 episodes is Fred Joyle. He founded 1-800-Dentist with $30,000 and over the next 25 years generated over $1 billion in total revenue. Now, outside of that small accomplishment of $1 billion, he also once beat Richard Branson at chess. And he also has been a question on Jeopardy. That's not bad. His latest book is called Superbold, From Underconfident to Charismatic in 90 Days. 90 days. Okay. It's an Amazon and Wall Street Journal bestseller. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me to welcome His Boldness, Fred Joyle.
Thank you very much, Dov. That's a fine introduction. I maybe have to retitle myself His Royal Boldness. I think
exactly. That's it. It's got to be.
Yeah.
Claim the bold title.
Yes. The super bold approach would be that for sure.
Exactly. So let's start where I always like to start. You know, I've said for about 450,000 years that we don't pay enough attention to our emotions. Human beings are emotionally driven. And what gives us the fuel for our emotions is where our meaning lies. What is the origin story of what gives your life meaning?
I grew up as a really shy person, and I think it was because my mom was very bold and I had the opposite reaction. And so I was underconfident in so many situations. I missed out on girlfriends, on opportunities, on jobs, promotions, adventure, all of that stuff. And then occasionally I spoke up or I stepped up, and it changed the course of my life. But I couldn't stand not to be bold, because I would see bold people and I would say, why are they like this? And I thought it was probably innate, but I just started emulating them, and it really changed my life. And it was a very slow process. But what impacted me most is, as I stopped eliminating regrets and started really enjoying a full life and bringing my full self to the world, I would see these other people hesitating, especially young people, missing opportunities, being shy, being underconfident. And I saw me in them, and it was painful. And I said, I have to help them out of this. And sometimes they're a young person, but they're 35 and they're still missing out on life. And some people, when they ask people on their deathbed, what they regret, it's the things they didn't do. Always. The things they didn't say. It's not the stuff they screwed up. It's not the problems they created for themselves, and not even being sick and dying. It's like, I should have fixed my relationship with my brother. I should have asked for that divorce. I should have tried to fix my marriage because she was the best woman ever. Whatever the things they didn't do. So I have become deeply passionate about helping people to bring their full selves to the world, harness this superpower of boldness. And it can be learned. I can teach you because I learned it. And it's made all the difference.
Let's just go to the specific, though, of meaning. Like, what is the meaning you put on boldness? Because, any word in the English language has a subjective meaning, right? And so many people will say bold, it means arrogant. Bold, it means charismatic. Bold, there's many different reasons. But for you, at a very personal, subjective level, not the one you're teaching necessarily, but the one that's like for you inside, what does boldness mean?
It means taking action. Even if you don't feel confident and you're not hesitating and letting a window of opportunity close, and bringing your whole full self, being comfortable bringing your whole full self to the world so that you can chase your dreams and you don't end your life with the regrets. My goal is to have very, very few regrets added to the list in my life, and to be bold enough to be kind, to be stand up for somebody, to speak up for somebody, to step in, to take risks, and a lot of those are very personal risks, emotional risks.
What's an example of you being a very early example of you being specific, of you being bold and feeling like I could shit the bed on this one? I mean, this could really blow up on me, but I've got to be bold.
The earliest one was, you get to look back and say this was changing everything. I was in high school and I was small. I weighed 103 pounds as a sophomore in high school, and the gym coach saw me and he said, "Joel, you're tiny," which is not, doesn't fill you with confidence when somebody points that out.
Thanks, coach. I feel much better now. I'll take on the world.
Yeah, why don't you point out that I'm still prepubescent, right? Because I'm so young and as a sophomore.
Do you have any pubic hair? Because we're not picking you if you don't have pubic hair.
And he said, you ought to go out for the wrestling team. Now, I was not good at any sport. I was one of those kids that wore glasses, so I was afraid of balls coming at my face and stuff like that. So had not done anything athletic. And I said, and some part of me just said, say yes. Because that's the thing, is like saying yes when you don't feel like confident enough to say yes, because you don't know, you're not certain of the outcome. So many people are waiting to be certain of how it's going to go before they say yes. That's really boldness too, is you don't know what the outcome is, and you're stepping into the ring. And so I said, yeah, I'll do that. And he said, practice is tonight. And wow, I'm in now. Right. And what I learned from athletics to push myself beyond what I thought I was capable of, and the friends I made, I was eventually, in my last year, I was captain of the wrestling team. And I was looked upon as a leader because I was willing to push myself and help everybody else on the team do better. I was the, cheering from the sidelines, because when you wrestle, you're out there one at a time, but you're living off the energy of your whole team yelling and screaming at you while you're on the mat. And it changed how I felt about myself, and it changed how people saw me in the school. They saw me as somebody different than I saw myself growing up. And so that was one of the real key turning points for me.
Yeah, so that's an interesting one. So what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is that you certainly didn't consider yourself to be naturally bold. Something happened. There's this moment with the wrestling coach and you step up. Talk to me a minute, because I think this is an important thing for many people listening. How do you say yes when you're afraid? Because, the amygdala's kicked in, the cortisol is flooding the brain, fear's all over us. There's no precognitive process. I'm not in the front part of my brain. I just want to run the hell away or climb under the bench and not say anything. How do you say yes when you're afraid? Because that part of your brain's not really available.
Yeah, because it's that same principle of courage isn't the lack of fear, it's acting in the face of fear. And so there's two parts of it. You have to mine the experiences of regret that you've stacked up and be angry enough about it to say, no more. I'm not going to be that person anymore. I'm not going to be defined by those things anymore. And the other thing is, what I'm teaching now is you want to build your boldness muscle. You want to do stuff where the risks are low, but you're not good at it. Which is, comedy is one of those things. Any sort of situation where you just go, I'm definitely not good at this. I think I'll try it. And what happens is you build this boldness muscle so that when you are bold, you say, I don't feel confident in this, but I'm going anyway, because you've created a new reward loop in your head, because you've done it enough where you realize the voice in your head is wrong. All those things that you're telling yourself, it's going to be embarrassing. It's going to be humiliating. I'm going to make a mistake. I'm going to, fail. You realize that's not true. You've done it enough where you say, yeah, I thought so, except when I did it, it was amazing. And something totally unexpected happened. And it was really positive. And
so you're building up this, sort of bank account of little bowls. And you brought up, first of all, and I think it's a really important point, because I talk to people a lot about this, is you are willing to mine your regrets. Dan Pink recently wrote a book about regret, and it was great because it talked about so much of what I've been saying for years that I just think is so important for people to grasp is regrets are not bad if you use them, if you leverage them. They're terrible if that you're living your life in them, of course. But what I'm hearing from you is exactly that, is that go to them and say, how shitty did I feel when I didn't do this? And how shitty might I feel next week, next month, next year on my deathbed, as you talked about, if I don't step into this and I don't find a way? And I really like that you're giving that as a piece for people to understand that boldness is actually something you're doing for your future self. Right. Yeah. And that's what you're saying about changing the perceptions of other people, but building this bank account of boldness. It's something you're doing for your future self. So I have to check with myself and say, this present self is, has got some twitching in the shrinky, but my future self won't have that. It won't have that. So I can, if I do this, or my future self will have less of it. And the more of this I build into this other account, so there's a regret account and the bold account, and the more I put into the bold account, the more the other account goes down. Is that correct? Have I got that?
That's really it, because what you want is the ability to step up when it matters most, to not let that opportunity disappear, because some of these windows close in an instant. And yes. And what a bold person has learned, and I learned, is that eventually trying and failing feels better than not trying. Mm-hmm. Because everybody else is trying to play it safe, which is right. The deadliest pathway through life, in my mind, is trying to find the safest path. It's the road to nowhere, in my mind. Yeah. We are not meant to be comfortable. We are meant to strain ourselves and challenge ourselves. That's how you build a muscle. That's how you build a business. And seeking the most comfortable, safest thing, things change in an instant. You think everything's going on along fine. You've got your whole tight life worked out perfectly, and then somebody broadsides you. Right. A drunk driver crosses the middle lane and kills everybody in the car but you, or something like that. Stuff doesn't seem to change at all, and then it changes hugely in an instant.
Yes, absolutely. And that's vital for us to all understand, is that nothing is guaranteed. So you might as well take some risk.
Well, nothing is guaranteed. I say, we're in the game of life here, but we don't know how long the coach is going to let us play. So play full out, because the buzzers, there isn't a set time for the buzzer to go off. You can be benched at any moment.
Now, you are obviously, when we talk about 1-800-DENTIST, you're obviously an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship is a risk game. I mean, that's what it is. You have an idea, you dive into it, you're going to do it. Do you think if you hadn't have taken that step with that coach for wrestling, etc., that you would have been an entrepreneur? Obviously we're playing in ideas here, but do you think that you would have done that, or do you think you would have found a nice job? Job?
No, I think what happened is I had started to develop some comedic boldness as much as anything, and I hadn't found a career I was interested in at all until I was about 29, and I walked into an ad agency because I wanted to write for a living. And that's why I tried, moved to Hollywood, tried to write some screenplays. And of course, that's not the way to make a living. And, but once I saw an ad agency, it was like the angels singing. It was like, I could do this, I have found my tribe.
Right.
And so I get very excited. I get good at writing advertising. And then I didn't like the career arc, and I wasn't necessarily a great employee by nature. And I knew this about myself. So I knew I had to branch out, and the opportunity just came to start the business. And, one of the principles I teach in the book, Superbold, is the concept of dosage, right? You control the intensity of your venture into your discomfort zone. You don't overwhelm yourself. So I was at a point, no wife, no kids, no home. I could start a business because I didn't have that far to fall. And so if it was a complete and utter failure, at least I had tried. And my partner and I, we had this motto that was like, we can be poor or rich. Middle class is going to kill us. So we gotta swing for the fences.
Right.
And so that allowed us to do it. And then eventually what happens is the other really important thing is, once you get committed enough to anything and don't leave yourself a way out, you got to figure it out. It's just like you walk
burning the ships.
Yeah. You burn the boats in the harbor one way or another, even if it's just, you're this woman who wants to meet this great looking guy, and you walk across the room, you don't know what the heck you're going to say. You just say, I'm walking up so that I'm stuck standing in front of him. I'm going to have to say something. Right. And there you are. And it's the same thing, when you start a business. Now, a lot of the parameters change, but my partner and I, we were personally signed on the leases for our offices for the first 15 years of the business, because we never had a big cash reserve and we had no inventory or anything. So we were always betting our houses and our lifestyle on these incredibly big leases after a while. And so you got to figure it out. You can't go, let's hang it up. Let's go get a job somewhere. That doesn't matter.
People do, Fred. I mean, let's be honest here. That people don't walk it through the end. We know this about entrepreneurs. They don't walk it through the end. They don't burn the boats. And on the other side of it, some people burn the boats and they bloody well shouldn't have done. Right. So, there's bold and there's stupid. Right.
It's a fine line. It's it's like, one of the two of us has done free climbing, and it works a fine line between bold and stupid, because
mine was over the line.
Yeah,
it was definitely
because there was no rope.
No rope. It's like there's gravity, there's rocks, and there's you in between.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so and to me, boldness, it's not about taking an unnecessary risk. It's not about not protecting your downside. That's like, saying, if I protect my downside, I'm being chicken shit, and it's like, no, always protect your downside, but make the bold moves and learn from them. Because any business you start, it's just like a battle. As soon as you launch, now you realize what the business is supposed to be, because the customers are going to tell you what you thought was so fascinating is not so fascinating, but they do like this other part about it that you thought was just incidental.
As we come towards the end of part one, and in part two, I want to walk through some of the strategies you give people to be bold, because you use improv comedy and some other strategies that allow people to as you said, pace out and dose how to be bold. I want to get into that into the second half of the show, but even here right now, what's something somebody can do? They've listened to this, they go, okay, this is pretty cool. I get to change how people see me. I get to minimize my regret, etc. What's something somebody can do and this is really important, who appears to be bold. Because there's a lot of us who are walking out in the world and we look like nothing bothers us. But inside, there's a lot of fear. What I'm asking you to do is to share, not for them how to be bold, but to own their boldness. Because I think oftentimes it's a show. Does that make sense? Am I making sense here?
Well, and the other thing is, we all have what I call situational boldness.
Yeah.
There are times, and it's different for everyone. I know people who have no problem going on stage and doing a presentation or doing stand-up one-on-one. They've got nothing with a person. They can't, they're dumbstruck and tongue-tied. And so we all have these situations where we're bold and we're not. And so understand that it's, don't define yourself. I always hate it when people say, I'm an introvert. It's like, stop labeling yourself as in this category of definition. I'm shy. No, you're not shy with your family at Thanksgiving dinner. You have moments where you behave in a shy way. You have introverted behavior. But when you decide you're an introvert, then you have to fulfill that role, and you give yourself the excuse. Oh, I'd go talk to that woman, but I'm an introvert. I'm going to wait till she comes talk to me. Or I want to meet Sir Richard Branson. He's right across the room, but he's not going to be interested in me. And I'm an introvert. I don't know what I'm going to say. Whereas he's one of the most approachable people in the world.
So what I'm hearing there is that the strategy is to stop labeling yourself into your limitations. Is that right?
Yeah. And then always be making yourself uncomfortable. Do exercises every day. And the simplest one, and it has a great dual-edged benefit, is to talk to strangers every day. Talk to at least one stranger and compliment them.
Yes.
Just offer them, I call it a drive-by compliment. You're not looking for anything in return. And what happens is they sense that. And when you realize that you are just being generous and saying, wow, that beard looks great on you. Or I don't know where you got that suit, but man, it suits you.
Right.
Or those shoes are fantastic, or whatever. Or you just have a wonderful smile, of gorgeous eyes, or you seem like a really confident person. You could say any of those things. The key is have no agenda. Expect nothing in return, because they sense that you have no agenda. I have talked to so many people because I don't radiate, I need something from them.
Yes.
And in the end, and I've told people stuff like, they must know this, but like I always think of the example of this woman, just gorgeous hair, like striking hair. She was a young woman. And I just said, your hair is just magnificent. And she said, oh, thank you so much. Nobody really says that to me. And I'm thinking, nobody says that to you. It's like, I think two other people in line jumped in on it when it was like at the Starbucks. But I changed her day.
Yeah.
And you know what? She changed my day because she was so appreciative of it. And that starts to build that loop of like, I can be generous. I don't need anything from people. And what happens is the unexpected happens. I've walked up to people and said, do you mind if I sit at this table? It would be a crowded place. And there was only and they were, yeah, sure. Now, most people go like, I can't do that. I can't ask somebody to sit at their table. They're going to tell me no. Well, assume they're going to say no. They could say, I'm expecting somebody else. I'd rather be alone. I'm working, any of those things. I've done it anyway and ended up having an hour-long conversation with the person, but not by interrogating them. And I would say something, and then I would go back and doing what I'm doing. And then they might say something, and all of a sudden we're having a really interesting conversation. Mm-hmm. Or I just sit there and work. but I've sat down, I've tried, and the success was the trying.
Exactly. Fred, it's a lovely conversation, my friend. Please make sure that people know how to find about you and about your book. So please tell them how to do that before we come to the end of part 1 and open up part 2.
Well, the simplest way, if you want the books, is to go to Amazon. It's on Kindle and Audible, and me reading it, and it's a hardcover, of course. And my website is fredjoyal.com, JOYAL. And you can find out about my keynotes and download the exercises from the book, read the first chapter of the book, see some of the lectures I've done on boldness, and even book a half an hour conversation with me if you're so compelled, and just say, look, I'm a closet case. I need help. So talk me out of the house. I'll get you out of the house. I'll get you chasing your dreams faster than you ever thought possible.
Wonderful. Of course, we'll make sure that we post all those links in the show notes. We're going to be back in just one click. But till then, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about the boldness that is within you when you're willing to face what it will cost you not to be bold, when you're willing to look at the potential regret. Stay curious, my friends. Stay curious. We're going to be back in just one click for part 2 of our delicious conversation with Fred Joyal.